Hi, I'm Justo Marquez. I am in the cohort SCIP 2202, and this is the Leading the Interpreter exercise from Module 1's debugging section. So let me first set a timer on my phone for 5 minutes and go. All right, we will first start. Let me just run this Command Enter. Paused on the first line debugger. This because that is nicely in DevTools and it allows us to do something like this. I will now do the next step, which should bring me right into line 2. An important thing here is right here, we are not actually about to call the function _.index of that we are declaring here. This is just a declaration. So index of, it's going to take in an array and target as the parameters. And when I do step for what's going to happen next, the debugger should skip right to line 14 because that is where we are actually calling this function. And as you see here, we're passing an array of just numbers 1, 2, 3, 4 in the first as a first argument, and then argument number 2 is just the target number 3. So now it's going to go. It's going to look like it's going to go back up, but it's really entering this function now because we called it. We are setting the variable result of -1, and that is because if we don't find this target, we'll just return -1. When I click next, we will now go to line 7, where we're going to start using the _jaces like native.each function. And what that function does is it takes an array, it takes in an iterative function, and it applies that iterative function to every element of that array. So I'm just going to go next. And here, if I go next, it should actually enter _.each's code. And when we enter that code, we should see that now we are in _.each's code. Actually, sorry, this is underbar.js's code, the one that I made, but it is doing the same thing that the native one would do. So basically here, first I was checking that the first parameter, making sure it is an actual array. This will evaluate to true because what we pass in is just a numeric array. And we will then go to line 57. Here I am just from 0 to the length of the collection, in this case, the array, going 0 through, it should be index 3, because this is a 4-element array. So starting at 0, what's going to happen is I'm going to click next. It's going to go to line 58 and actually call the iterator that is in our snippet code onto what is at array index 0. So just after a quick length check, it's going to go to 58, and then it's going to go back out to here. Now here, what we're seeing is it's going to compare item, and in this case, item is what was at index 0 of that array, which is going to be the number 1. And then it's going to compare that to target. That will evaluate to false because it's not 3. And even though result does evaluate to true when it's compared to -1, this is an and condition, so both sides of the and must be true. So now when I do next, it's going to skip over, and it's actually going to go back into each to get the next index. Making sure here that we haven't exceeded the line after iterating I++, right? So we haven't exceeded yet. I is just still the number 1, and it can go all the way to the length, which is 4. So we're not there yet. We're then going to go back out, call it iterator on index 2 now, which is this number 2. This should also evaluate to false when I do next, and it'll skip back down. There you go. And then iterate, increase I++ again. So now we are at I equals 2, and you can see that on the right side, verify it. We're still not quite at the length yet. So let's call it again, this time at index 2, which is the number 3. Now, item and target should equal to true, and result is still -1 because we haven't found yet a result. Now, this is going to update result to be the index of 2. What this also means is, say this array was much longer than this, none of the following steps in the .each statement should evaluate to true anymore because result is no longer -1. That being said, we only have one more to go, and for illustration purposes, I'll keep going. So we've updated result, and you can see here we've updated it to the number 2 because that was index we found. It's going to go back into .each, and then .each, we still haven't hit the length yet, right? We still have I equals 3 to go, the last and final piece. So it's going to try to call that iterator again on I equals 3, which would be the number 4, index 3, which would be the number 4 of our array. This will evaluate to false. It's going to skip down. Result at this time is still number 2. And then here we have finally hit the length of our collection after going up 1. It's going to exit. As you see, it went to that final statement. And now we are at where we are returning the result. And when I return that result at the bottom of my screen, I should see the number 2. Let me keep going. Oh, stop my timer. And then if this executes all the way, we see the number 2 returned. Obviously, this is because I'm using DevTools that you actually see that number 2. If I did something like console.log, it would allow you to see in, just the output console. But that looks like what index I was doing.